7 shocking practices that transform your life forever. Buddhism, mindfulness secrets revealed. The sky was a swirling tempest that evening, heavy with an ominous hue that held promises of the unknown. It crackled with energy, a prelude to chaos, and a perfect backdrop for the secrets about to unfold. People gathered on the slick pavement, their breaths visible in the frigid air, faces lit with the unreal glow of flickering street lamps. They whispered tales of a strange man who had appeared in town, claiming to have the power to heal with just a touch, the weight of his presence enough to bend the very fabric of reality. This man, they said, walked barefoot through the snow, leaving behind prints that glimmered as though kissed by the moon. He spoke in riddles, echoing ancient wisdom that had been buried deep within the earth for centuries. The stories of miraculous transformations buzzed through town like electricity. Was it true? That forgiveness could lift years of despair from your shoulders? That a single morning ritual could shift the trajectory of your life toward unimaginable joy? Each tale dripped with mystery, twisting the minds of those who dared to listen. The air was thick with expectation, and hearts raced with excitement mingled with a tinge of fear. What would it mean to embrace such changes? As the evening progressed, curious souls shuffled closer together, flicking nervous glances toward the shadows. A local journalist, Alice, pushed her way through the crowd. She felt the tightness in her chest, the tension building like a coiled spring ready to snap. What if these practices were more than whispers of hope? What if they unlocked something dark and hidden within? Stories of the man's past loomed large, hinting at a life filled with pain and struggle, each acknowledgement driving the tension deeper. But there was a lure to a flicker of a broken heart healed after trials, the unreachable transforming into the tangible. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, an eerie cry pierced the air, drawing the crowd's gaze to the unfolding scene. Alice shivered, feeling the fluttering fear deepen. Was the wind carrying something? Moments later, the enigmatic figure emerged from the darkened alley. Cloaked in fabric that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, he moved with a grace that defied reason. Faces turned white, eyes wide, as he approached the center of the gathering. What did he aim to do? Each heartbeat resonated, heavy with anticipation. She could feel the air shift, a chilling reminder that transformation often comes at a price. Was everyone ready for it? As he stepped forward, silence fell. What shocking truths were about to be revealed? Alice's resolve hardened. She had to know. The mystery was only beginning. In the profound stillness that followed, the man stood before the throng, his eyes glimmering like stars shrouded in darkness. The tension thickened in the air, wrapping around each onlooker like a cold embrace. Alice leaned forward, her heart pounding, sensing that this was more than just a man. He was a force, an echo of truths that had been long buried beneath layers of doubt and disbelief. "Speak your truths," he intoned, his voice a melody that reached into the depths of the soul. Each word carried weight, a promise wrapped in enigma. The crowd felt the gravitational pull of his presence. Their bodies leaned in, longing for enlightenment, yet fearful of the revelation it might beckon. "What are you offering us?" Someone shouted from the back, the courage swelling from a yearning so deep it burned. "Will you heal us, or tear us apart?" A small chuckle escaped the man's lips, sending shivers down Alice's spine. Healing requires honesty. Only through confronting the shadows can we embrace the light. His gaze swept across the crowd, lingering on Alice, who felt a jolt of awareness ripple through her chest. Did he see her uncertainty? The doubts that clouded her thoughts? "Step forward if you're willing to unveil the truth." He beckoned, a challenge more than an invitation. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, skepticism battling the fervor of desperation. Alice found herself battling the turmoil within. She had always been the observer, documenting stories of others. But here, in the flickering shadows of evening, it felt like the narrative was shifting. The man's presence ignited something dormant inside her a fierce desire to break free from expectations. Still, fear clawed at her. What truth lay buried within her? As if sensing her struggle, the man extended a hand towards her, the moonlight catching the glimmer of something precious, an amulet hanging from his neck. You hold the key to your own prison. An electric thrill coursed through her blood. She couldn't resist. She stepped out of the crowd, feeling all eyes on her, a torrent of anticipation flooding her senses. The man's touch felt warm against her skin as he beckoned her closer. The world around her faded into a blur. What must I do? Alice whispered, a hum of vulnerability dancing in her voice. Let go of the past, he replied, his breath dancing against her ear. Forgive not just others, but also yourself. Only then will you see the truth. A scream pierced the air, startling the assembly, yanking Alice back to reality. Faces turned, whispers ignited like flames in dry brush, and chaos erupted as another figure emerged from the shadows. Dark and brooding, eyes afire with tumult, it was someone she recognized. Stop him! The newcomer shouted, anger boiling beneath each word. He.s. a fraud. Confusion flooded Alice. Doubts surged like a tide, overwhelming her resolve. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The crowd stirred restlessly, uncertainty gnawing at their courage. Was this stranger right? Was the man before her a healer or a charlatan? Alice's gaze flickered between the two men, a wild pulse ringing in her ears. She had stepped onto the edge of something profound, balancing on a precipice. What was this revelation she sought, and could she survive it? With her heart in her throat, Alice knew she had to choose her path, but the decision felt heavier than a stone. As the tension spiraled like a whirlwind around her, she realized the real transformation awaited. If only she dared to leap into the unknown, what would she decide? The man who had once seemed so comforting now stood at the center of a brewing storm. As Alice stared into the depths of his enigmatic gaze, she felt her heart racing, a battle of instincts playing out within her. Her back straightened, every part of her screamed to rebel against doubt, to embrace the honesty he promised. But the newcomer's accusation hung thick in the air, suffocating her resolve. Fraud. The word echoed like a gunshot through the crowd. Gasps rippled outward, and tension tightened like a vice. Alice could feel the shifting mood. Once hungry for truth, the crowd now seemed to teeter on the edge of panic. Don't listen to him. The man called out again, his voice slicing through the chaos. He's trying to control your fear. Can't you see that? His eyes darted from one person to another, igniting flickers of anger and fear. He wants to keep you in darkness. Alice's pulse thundered in her ears. The man before her, the purported healer, still held her gaze, his expression inscrutable. What truth did he see in her, and did he feel her conflict? Step back, shouted the newcomer, his image becoming clearer as he approached the stage. He's manipulating you all. I've seen it before. When the spotlight is on, the fake steps forward. Don't be fooled. If only the crowd followed such advice. Alice watched as the band of seekers, once curious, began to retreat into the safety of their insecurities. The spell cast upon them might shatter at any moment, and she could feel their eagerness wane, their light dimming. Listen to me, the dark figure continued, pointing an accusing finger at the man. He preys on the weak, just like he did to me. Murmurs of disbelief sparked in the crowd. Rumors, stories exchanged silently among a sea of faces. Alice swallowed hard. What was her truth, buried deep alongside the cobwebs of her past? Was she weak? The question clawed at her insides. She took a small step forward, drawn towards both men like a moth to an unforgiving flame. Can you afford to be a coward? The initial man spoke, steady and calm. Or will you dare to confront the very thing that holds you back? Coward? The words sizzled in her mind, a challenge she didn't know she craved. She had spent so long hiding behind the lens, behind the words of others. She was more than a spectator in life. But what kind of participant would she truly be? Stop! Alice shouted, her own voice surprising her. The crowd fell quiet, each set of eyes locking onto her, as if sensing a shift in the air. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming surge of strength. We all want to heal, but healing comes from within. We can't let fear dictate our choices. Words spilled out like a dam breaking, raw and unfiltered. If we want the truth, we have to face it. But was that even true? Could she really align herself with his intentions? Or was she just caught up in the heat of the moment, desperately seeking acceptance? See, the dark figure scoffed, his voice dripping with mockery. Another eager to be fooled. Alice's pulse raced harder than before. The spotlight was hers, but she felt the warmth of the man's initial touch still lingering on her skin. It urged her on. She could either falter back into doubt or leap into understanding. Every heartbeat thundered in the charged silence. "Make your choice, Alice," the man whispered, his voice just for her, intimate in the chaos that surrounded them. "Face your truth and find your power." The choice loomed in her mind, clearer yet murkier than ever. The ground beneath her seemed unstable, teetering toward a cliff of revelations. Was she prepared for what awaited her? But just as clarity began to dawn, the crowd exploded into chaos once more, voices rising in a storm of confusion. York, the dark figure, lunged toward the man, and in a heartbeat, the calm would shatter. What would Alice do as both men collided, each representing a fragment of her own fractured identity? Alice's breath caught in her throat as York lunged, a blur of dark intentions aimed straight at the healer. There was no time to think, only to act. Instinct took over, and she rushed forward, her arms reaching out in desperate hope to intervene. "Stop!" The word burst from her lips, but the chaos swallowed it, drowned in a cacophony of shouts and pounding hearts. They collided, a brutal force that sent the healer staggering back. The crowd gasped collectively, their hands clasping around mouths, eyes wide with shock. It was as if time stood still for a heartbeat, and then it fractured into 1,000 pieces. York was on the ground, pinning the healer down, rage swirling around them like a storm. The healer grunted, struggling against the grip, his calm facade finally slipping to reveal a flicker of fear in his eyes. "Help him!" someone in the crowd shouted. "Get him off!" Alice hesitated for a split second, caught between her instinct to defend and her gut suspicion that this man might not be who he claimed. Would stepping in make her a hero or a pawn in someone else's game? York's voice rang out, raw and charged with conviction. "This is a choice. See the truth." He pressed his weight harder, and the healer's breath came in quick gasps. Alice felt a knot twist in her stomach. Standing there, she felt the eyes of the crowd slice through her like knives. Would they see her as a warrior or a fool? Enough. She didn't recognize her own voice as it surged above the tumult, fierce and commanding. "We can't let this madness consume us. What do we really know?" Her heart raced, excitement and fear mingling in a thrilling cocktail. York paused mid-struggle, suddenly aware of her presence. "Alice, don't let him deceive you. He has used people like us before. You can't trust him. Let him go." She stepped forward, trembling with determination, her decisions clear despite the cacophony. "We need to listen instead of fight." The surrounding crowd held their breath, uncertainty enveloping them like a shroud. Tension hung thick in the air, everyone waiting, afraid to move, yet renewing their hopes with Alice's fierce declaration. Finally, York released his grip and stood. The healer scrambled to his feet, brushing off dust, his composure reclaiming its remnants. "Is this what you want?" he asked, exhaustion etched on his features. Fear breeding fear? A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Some shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, questioning their own judgments. Alice's heart raced. This was the moment. The opportunity to guide them towards something larger than themselves. "It's not just about believing," she shouted, her passion igniting the night. "It's about seeking, asking the hard questions. Find the strength to ignite your own light." They stirred, wavering on the precipice of inspiration or doubt. She felt it. They all did. The tension thickened again, and she could feel the fear swirling, ready to seize the moment. But then came the unthinkable, a loud crash. The overhead lights flickered and died, plunging the space into darkness. Gasps echoed, fear rippling through the crowd as shadows danced wildly around them. The healer shouted something, words lost in the chaos. York twisted sideways, his voice rising in sheer terror. "Stay together. Don't let it pull you apart." From the blackness, a flicker of light suddenly sparked, illuminating wide eyes and tightening fists. Desperate whispers filled the air, a mixture of hope and dread. One sentence sent a chill down Alice's spine. The truth is more dangerous than we imagined. What lay behind the shadows and flickering light, and would she find the clarity she desperately sought, or would another layer of deceit unravel, pulling her deeper into the void? Alice's heart raced as darkness engulfed her, the loud crash still echoing in her ears. Her instincts kicked in, adrenaline spiking. She fought against the panic that threatened to take hold. Where was York? Had he retreated further? "Don't move," a voice shouted, cutting through the tension like a knife. It was York. She could hear the raw urgency in his tone. "We can't let it distract us. Stay close." As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, fleeting glimmers flickered overhead, remnants of the collapsed fixtures casting eerie patterns on the walls. The crowd shifted uneasily, anxiety thick enough to cut. Alice felt it grip her stomach with icy fingers. In that chilling darkness, every stranger felt like a potential enemy. The healer's silhouette emerged, shadowed but unmistakably present. "We need to gather ourselves," he called, voice steady. "Fear will only betray us." Alice's brows knitted together. He giving in, despite the chaos. "What do you know?" "More than you think," he replied, stepping forward, a ghost of confidence illuminating his features briefly in the erratic light. "I didn't come here to fight. I came to warn you." The word warn echoed heavily in the confined space, igniting curiosity mixed with skepticism. Alice straightened, focused on his voice. "Warn us about what?" "The darkness. It isn't just around us," he said, shaking his head as he reached toward the flickering lights. "It's in some of us. We can't see the truth when we're wrapped in fear's embrace." Gasps scattered through the crowd, thin but penetrating. Alice felt a weight in the air, an unsettling mix of alarm and intrigue. It was true. Fear had driven them to extremes. But was it really the healer they should be worried about? Just then, the lights flickered back to life, revealing pale, apprehensive faces illuminated by the glow. Alice squinted against the sudden brightness. Her gaze darted toward York, who appeared just as confused and vulnerable as the rest of them. York stepped up, hands raised for attention. "Everyone listen. The healer doesn't have all the answers. We've seen what lies behind that facade." A murmur rippled, voices rising in agitation again. Suspicion was crawling back, slinking in the guise of self-preservation. "Wait," Alice shouted, her voice slicing through their rising fears. "We can't let fear dictate our choices. We still have questions. We deserve to know why any of this matters. Because it's not just about us anymore," York said, his voice strained. "It's about what happens next. What the healer knows, it could change everything." A chill swept through Alice. What could be so pivotal? "What do you mean?" she pressed. Yet before anyone could answer, another crash reverberated from beyond the hall. The walls rattled, sending a cascade of dust tumbling to the ground. A strangled cry erupted from the crowd, fear rushing back in cold waves. "What was that?" someone yelled, panic rising again. Just as the voices swelled, shadows flickered from the corners of the room, darker than before. A figure emerged, wrapped in darkness, face obscured. Their presence cut through the air like ice. "Stop!" yelled the healer, moving forward, but the figure waved a hand dismissively. "Enough of this charade," they said, voice like silk yet laced with venom. "You've all been blind to the real danger lurking among you." Alice's throat tightened. The weight of uncertainty threatened to crush her. Were they truly facing an enemy now? Was this what the healer tried to protect them from all along? The figure stepped closer, and in that dim light, one thing became clear: the truth could fracture their already tenuous bond. And as the crowd united under a cloak of fear and suspicion, Alice's world tilted on its axis once more. What happens next will reveal who among you is truly dangerous. Was it the healer, York, or someone else in that very room? The atmosphere thickened, the urgency palpable, as questions multiply like shadows. Alice could only hope they would find clarity before it was too late. The air grew heavy with anticipation as the shadowy figure loomed closer. Alice felt the bite of fear clasp around her chest, squeezing relentlessly. Who was this intruder? What did they mean by danger lurking among them? Suddenly, a shrill scream shattered the tense silence. A woman in the crowd collapsed, clutching her chest, eyes wide with terror. "They're not what they seem," she shrieked as two others rushed to her side, panic igniting once more. Voices erupted, an explosive ripple of confusion and dread. The words of the figure echoed in Alice's mind, igniting suspicion in an already frayed atmosphere. "What are you talking about?" someone shouted, but their voice was drowned by the tide of anxiety flooding the room. The figure stepped forward, revealing a pale visage adorned with malevolent intent. "Trust will break like glass when the truth is unveiled," they hissed, glancing over the crowd. "And it starts with you, healer." The healer's jaw clenched, his composure slipping. "You don't have to listen to them," he implored urgently, striding forward. "We need clarity, not chaos." "Clarity?" The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the hearts of all present. "You think you can guide them through the darkness you've intentionally hidden? I have come to show the truth." Alice's heart thrummed as she glanced between York and the healer. Questions swirled. Was the healer really the one they needed to fear? A familiar sense of betrayal surged. Yet, something deep within her urged her not to jump to conclusions. "What truth do you speak of?" she challenged, trying to steady her trembling voice. The figure's black-clad hand gestured toward the crowd. "Among you lies a deceitful spirit, one who feeds on your fear and confusion. I can reveal them, if you dare to see." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Some faces turned towards each other, eyes wide, suspicion blooming as harsh whispers flitted from one fearful mouth to another. Who could it be? York stepped closer to Alice, the urgency in his grip tightening around her arm. "Don't listen to them, Alice. This is a diversion, an attempt to sow discord between us. We can't afford to trust shadows." But doubt began to gnaw at her. What if suspicion flowed more freely than blood in their veins? Before she could voice her thoughts, the shadowed figure took a step back, a smirk twisting their lips. "You'll see soon enough, when the darkness reveals itself." And as the figures of celebration and chaos faded into one another, the flickering lights began to dim again, plunging them into an unsettling half-light. Panic rippled as shadows stretched unnaturally, wrapping around each person like a snake ready to strike. "Stay together." York's shout rang out, but the crowd erupted into a frenzy, racing toward the entrance, minds frantic with uncertainty. Alice's pulse hammered in her ears as she fought against the tide. "We need to stay calm," she yelled. "That's what they want to turn us against each other." Just then, a scream echoed from the back, and more people stumbled out of the shadows, their faces pale and terror-stricken. Among them was a familiar figure. Alice's heart sank at the sight. Her friend, Sarah, struggled through the crowd, a look of pure horror twisting her features as she stumbled forward. "What is happening?" Sarah cried, breathless. "There's something coming. We have to leave." "Leave?" Alice's breath hitched. They couldn't just run. If the darkness was in their midst, wouldn't fleeing just expose them more? "No. We need to stick together." But the panic had taken hold, and as people surged around her, Alice felt the walls closing in. York caught her gaze, a plea hidden in his eyes. "Just trust me." The healer was right, they needed clarity. But as the crowd pushed toward the exits, Alice couldn't shake the chilling feeling that someone was watching. "Who among us?" she murmured, glancing back at the figure as it melted into the shadows, a specter in the dark, and then the lights flickered, plunging them into a suffocating darkness. Once more in that moment, Alice understood. The real battle wasn't just against the encroaching shadows, but against the very people around her. The danger was more than just a haunting presence. They could be dealing with a betrayal that would unravel everything. "Do you dare to confront your fears?" The shadow's voice echoed, thick with a haunting promise. What she didn't know was that the answers were already within reach, and it wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about revelation. The question loomed heavily over her mind, hanging in the air like a broken promise. Who could she trust when darkness hid behind familiar eyes? The chaos surged like a tidal wave, bodies brushing against Alice as they scrambled for the exits. The mingled sounds of heavy breathing and frantic footfalls filled the air, a cacophony of fear that threatened to swallow her whole. "Stop!" she cried, desperation lending weight to her voice. "We can't just run. We need to stick together." Somewhere amidst the terrified faces, Alice spotted the healer. He stood firm, his presence a small beacon of calm amidst the storm. His gaze, heavy with concern, met hers for a fleeting moment. "Alice, we can't allow this fear to control us," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the uproar. But before she could respond, A loud crash reverberated through the venue. The doors were flung open, and figures stumbled into the room, silhouetted against a backdrop of blinding light. "We have to," one of them shouted, but his voice was swallowed as another shadow darted into the light, a flash of movement too swift to identify. Alice's heart raced. "What is happening?" she shouted, but no one seemed to hear her. The wave of panic crescendoed as whispers morphed into shouts of accusation. "It's you. You're the one. You brought this." Voices turned inward, fingers pointed recklessly as suspicion poisoned the air between them. "Enough," the healer bellowed, his voice slicing through the din. "This is madness. We are stronger together." He made his way to the center, but the crowd surged like a living thing, pushing against him. Alice felt a pull at her arm, a familiar touch. It was Sarah, her face etched in worry. "We can't let them drive us apart, Alice. Please." Before she could answer, a different shadow flickered, a figure moving in and out of the light, too indistinct to be comprehended. And then the figure spoke, a voice dripping with mockery. "Trust is merely a chimera, isn't it? The healer can't save you now." The words hung heavy, electrifying the tension. Alice's breath caught in her throat. Who was this person? Why were they doing this? "Everyone, listen." York's voice cut through her thoughts, steady and commanding. "We need to find that figure. They're playing us against each other." But as Alice looked around, the faces she once recognized morphed into masks of suspicion. Friends and family turned into potential foes. The very air crackled with uncertainty, and she could feel her pulse quickening, fear gripping her once more. "But what if it's," she started, but York's sharp gaze silenced her. "Then we deal with it. Together," he insisted, grabbing her wrist and pulling her closer. "Just stay by my side." Determined, Alice nodded, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the looming despair. "Okay, let us find them." But just as they moved deeper into the crowd, the lights dimmed again, flickering impatiently, casting the space into a strobing nightmare. Suddenly, shrieks broke through the panic, a sudden scream, full of agony, ripped through the gathering. Alice spun around, searching for its source, and then it hit her. In the chaos, she had lost sight of the healer. "Where is he?" Her voice trembled as she gripped Sarah's arm, panic escalating once more. "We have to find him." With a determined glance shared between them, Alice, York, and Sarah turned toward the thickest shadows, the last remaining darkness that loomed closer. Each tentative step echoed, a chorus of dread. "He's our only hope. He has to know something," but deep down, a seed of doubt had taken root. What if the healer was hiding something far worse than the shadows themselves? What if he was the very threat they feared? As they ventured deeper into the unknown, the figure they had to confront was not only out there in the darkness, but possibly entwined within their very circle. And with every step, Alice realized the true danger wasn't he just lurking in the shadows. It might be hiding in plain sight among them. Would they encounter a truth too horrid to bear? Or would the light finally break through the dark illusions weaving around them? With hearts pounding like thunder, they pressed on, unaware of the web of deception tightening every moment around them. The darkness pressed in on them like a living entity, heavy and suffocating. Alice instinctively moved closer to York, feeling a jolt of warmth against the encroaching chill of uncertainty. Sarah grasped her other hand, their fingers tangled in a desperate bond against the chaos unraveling around them. "What is happening? Do you think he's all right?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, choked with the panic that each heartbeat drummed in their ears. Alice shook her head, her heart racing with anxiety. "I don't know, but we can't just stand here." They pushed forward, weaving through pockets of scared faces, searching for the healer's reassuring figure. Shadows danced erratically as the strobe lights flickered, illuminating not just the frightened crowd, but a deeper fear lurking within them all. Alice couldn't shake the feeling that someone disguised as one of them might be the true threat. As they neared the edge of the venue, they caught sight of a figure moving gracefully through the haze of bodies. It was cloaked, its outline shifting like smoke. Instinctively, York stepped forward, voice low yet commanding. "Wait. Who are you?" The figure turned slowly, revealing a face partially obscured by shadows, yet familiar. Alice felt the ground seem to pulsate beneath her. "You don't have to look so frightened, Alice. After all, fear is palpable, isn't it?" The voice was smooth, taunting. A guttural chill snaked up her spine as recognition hit. This was no ordinary figure. It was the voice from before, the one that had mocked trust and safety. "Where's the healer?" Alice demanded, steadier than she felt. "Oh, the healer." The figure laughed softly, a sound that twisted in her stomach. "Do you think he possesses the knowledge you seek? Or perhaps he harbors the darkness within, just like the rest of you?" Alice's breath quickened. "What are you saying?" he asked, trying to help us. "Help?" The figure scoffed. "Open your eyes, dear Alice. Nothing is as it seems. You think you can unravel the web without getting tangled within it? Are you sure he hasn't ensnared you?" York stepped closer, defiantly challenging the figure. "This is a distraction. You want us to doubt each other. We will not fall for your tricks." The figure stepped back into the shadows, a fleeting smirk evident. "Oh, but you already have. Doubt lingers like a fog, doesn't it? Especially when trust is broken." Before Alice could respond, a commotion erupted nearby, a flash of commotion as someone was shoved to the ground. A woman screamed, shrill and filled with terror that pierced the room's chaos. "Over there," Sarah shouted, pointing. "Isn't that where the healer was last seen?" Without hesitation, they ran toward the fray, adrenaline propelling them forward. The dim lights illuminated a scene of panic. A few attendees were restraining a man against the floor, eyes wild as he struggled. "Get off him!" York yelled, rushing to the scene, but Alice felt rooted to the ground, breathless. Something about the man struck her. There was a glimmer of recognition. As York and Sarah knelt beside him, Alice's eyes widened. "Wait a moment. That's him. The healer." The crowd closed in, a tumultuous wave of questions and accusations swelling. Was he a victim? Or was he part of this growing chaos? "Please," he cried out, looking directly at her. "You have to trust me. I can save us." But doubt crept in even tighter, wrapping around her heart. Was this man truly there to help? Or was he the puppeteer pulling the strings of this monstrous play? In a breathless silence, every eye in the crowd shifted toward her, waiting for Alice to decide. Could they trust him, or would she inadvertently lead them into a trap? As the air thickened and uncertainty twisted like barbed wire around them, Alice realized the choice she made in that moment would echo through the darkness. "Do we trust him?" she whispered, heart racing as the crowd held its breath. Just then, a sound broke through the tension, a distant rumble, perhaps thunder, but with a deeper, more ominous ring, as if the very building were responding to the truth. Hidden beneath the chaos, what was happening now? Would they find clarity or plunge deeper into madness? The air in the venue thickened, a charged silence hanging over the crowd like a fragile glass poised to shatter. Alice sensed a collective heartbeat, pounding with uncertainty. Eyes darted between her and the healer, fear etched on every face. The distant rumble morphed into a palpable tension, vibrating through the floor beneath her feet. Trust him? Every letter felt like a weight pressing down on her. Could she bear it if this was another game, another act in a tragedy that was spiraling out of control? "Give me one reason to believe you," Alice called out, her voice trembling yet fierce. The healer's expression shifted, desperation breaking through his pain. "Because blind faith is a path paved with betrayal. Those cloaked in shadows will consume us if we don't act." His words cut through the atmosphere, sparking a flicker of hope that mingled uneasily with doubt. York turned her way, urgency flashing in his eyes. "Alice, we can't let fear blind us. He might be our only chance. Or our downfall," Alice muttered, fear tightening her chest. The crowd shifted, their murmurs swirling like a brewing storm, too restless to stay silent. Just then, a split second of chaos hit the group, scattering the tension. A flicker of movement caught Alice's peripheral vision. A figure darted among them, a shadow, moving swift as lightning. There was a flick of familiar fabric. The dark, cloaked figure from before. "Stop!" Alice screamed, adrenaline coursing through her. People turned, but the figure blended into the madness, slipping away before anyone could react. "Wait!" she shouted, heart pounding harder. "We can't let them go." With renewed determination, Alice broke away from York and Sarah, plunging into the fray. "Stay close," she insisted over her shoulder, but she barely heard their response over the cacophony of voice and fear. She pushed through throngs of terrified bodies. The crowd revealed nothing but fear-streaked faces, trembling hands, and cries echoing off the walls. Where was that figure going? What secret did it hold? As Alice reached the back of the room, she caught a glimpse, the figure standing near a dimly lit exit. Was it leading them to safety, or to a trap? Stop! She yelled, her breath rasping in her throat. But the figure turned slightly, eyes reflecting the chaotic strobe lights. They hesitated for a heartbeat, then bolted away again, vanishing into the shadows. Panic threatened to suffocate her as she glanced back, looking for York and Sarah, but they were lost in a sea of confusion. Alice's heart raced. Did she dare follow? The healer's cry echoed in her ears, the urgency of his words mingled with the dark pulse of doubt. Everything felt like it was unraveling. This darkness pressed against her, clawing at her senses. Yet the feeling she had to chase this figure was undeniable. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the last barrier of bodies, reaching the exit. Outside, the air was cold, a sharp contrast to the heated madness inside. She could still hear the muffled chaos through the walls. Alice stepped into the dim alley, following the vague outline of the figure. Wait, she called into the emptiness. It paused. The figure turned slowly, and the flickering light revealed a face she never expected to see. A twisted smile paired with filled eyes that glinted with past secrets. I've waited a long time for you, Alice, the figure whispered, a malicious grin splitting their face. You're just in time for the truth. Her heart dropped like lead. What truth awaited her? What darkness was hiding in plain sight? As she took a tentative step closer, dread filled her veins. In the beat of silence, everything felt like it was about to explode. Alice wasn't ready for what she would uncover. But the choice to move forward lay heavy in the air, like a hissing breath before the storm. Would she embrace the truth, or run back into the chaos? And then the shadows began to shift, as if they had a will of their own. Alice stood at the edge of the alley, heart racing, the darkness swirling like a living creature. The figure before her was a silhouette of memories and fears, and every instinct urged her to retreat. But the allure of answers, of truth, held her still. What do you want? She asked, forcing the words through tight lips. The figure leaned closer, the dim light illuminating familiar features, the shape of someone she never expected, someone she thought was long gone. It's time for you to understand, Alice. The truths you seek have been right in front of you. Your healer, he is not who he claims. A cold wash of disbelief gripped her. You're lying. She shot back, scrambling to hold on to the threads of certainty in this storm. He is here to help us. The figure chuckled darkly, a sound that twisted Alice's stomach. Help or deceive? Every healer has a darkness they hide. A shiver ran down her spine. The crowd inside had spun into a frenzy. The echoes of chaos still echoed behind her. She could feel the pull to run back to York and Sarah, back to safety, back to the collective, but something in her pushed her closer to the figure. What do you know? She challenged, narrowing her eyes. The figure stepped back into the shadows, allowing the flickering streetlight to reveal key elements, a glint of cold steel, hidden intentions. What if you learned that you've been a pawn this entire time, Alice? The truth is often darker than comfort. Last chance, will you expose him? Or let fear continue to bind you? Every word pushed against the walls of her mind. Her past loomed large, a history of doubt, pain, and uncertainty that tangled with her desire to break free. The thoughts of York's desperate pleas twisted within her, as did the healer's firm belief in forging light from darkness. How could they coexist? The figure's voice continued, smooth like ice. Trust is a gamble, darling. And in love and warfare, the stakes are high. No, Alice whispered, the word bursting forth as she clung to her resolve. You're trying to make me doubt everything I believe in. But even as she spoke, uncertainty clawed at her, lingering like shadows tugging at her sleeve. Leave while you can, the figure urged, drawing closer again, locking eyes with her. Once you jump in, there's no going back. No one emerges unscathed. Alice's chest tightened. What do you mean? A flash of pain flickered through the figure's eyes, then vanished like smoke. The darkness we speak of? It lives within us all. You might touch it, or succumb to it. But choose wisely, Alice. The truth burns, but it also cleanses. And just like that, something snapped inside Alice. A fury ignited, fueling her resolve. You think you can scare me? You think I'll let you hold power over my choices? She squared her shoulders. I'm not afraid of confronting this truth. The figure recoiled, surprise flickering across their features. But Alice pressed on, unrelenting. You wanted to pull me down into your web of deceit. But I won't fall for that. If there's darkness in the healer, in York, or even in me, I'll face it head on. In this pivotal moment, with courage swelling in her heart, she turned on her heel and raced back toward the chaos inside, leaving the figure gaping in her wake. Each pounding step felt like a drumbeat of transformation, shaking loose the fear that had chained her spirit. The scene inside was dramatic, a swirling mass of fear, anger, and uncertainty. York and Sarah's faces lit with relief when they saw her return. Alice, York shouted, pulling her close, his expression a mixture of concern and joy. Where have you been? I found a shadow, Alice gasped, the gravity of her heart rattling her voice. They tried to sow doubt, but it didn't work. We have to stand together. She turned to the crowd, determination gripping her heart tightly. We can confront the darkness among us, together. We won't let fear tear us apart. The healer stepped forward, brow knitted in concern. Alice, it's not just about confronting darkness. It's about embracing the truth within ourselves, the light and shadow. But fear has made us blind, she shouted back, feeling a surge of adrenaline. We can't let it overwhelm us. We need to be honest with each other. York's gaze softened as he nodded, stepping beside her. She's right. We all have our shadows, but unity in truth is our greatest strength. An electric tension ignited in the crowd. Murmurs began to ripple as people exchanged looks of realization and resolve. Perhaps Alice's words had kindled a spark of awakening. We can't allow manipulation to rule us, Sarah added, standing tall. Let us take this chance to dig deeper, question harder, and ultimately heal together. The crowd looked from Alice to York, from the healer to each other, weighing the gravity of the path ahead. The murmur transformed into determined nods, shoulders straightening, unity versus disarray. Then came the crash. With a surge of darkness sweeping toward them, the shadowy figure from the alley returned, but this time no longer alone. Figures converged from the corners, cloaked in intentions darker than the night itself, flickering in and out of existence like specters. Together, Alice shouted, adrenaline pumping fiercely, as the crowd joined her, their collective resolve shining through the darkness. We face this as one. And in that fierce moment, the shadows began to recede, pushed back by the bright light of understanding and trust. They had awakened something strong, a fire born from vulnerability and truth. The battle ahead was uncertain, but they were ready. Together, they would confront whatever darkness lay in the shadows and unravel the mystery that lingered. The truth beneath it all awaited them, and Alice felt the flame of hope ignite within her. As they braced for the oncoming challenge, she understood this was just the beginning. But the journey they'd embark on would define not just them, but their very lives. They would confront the darkness, together. They had found their strength in truth, in unity, and in each other. But this was not the end. It was merely the dawn of awakening. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help us climb the algorithm. Every click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful finale unfold.